All right, guys, thank you very much for your time today. We're going to give you guys a quick overview of a patented new product called BoltRail. BoltRail is a pre-manufactured, ready-to-use anchor bolting template. So if you guys are doing any kind of construction that requires setting anchor bolts into position over formwork, we've got a tool that makes that job simple, easy, and fast. I'm going to introduce you guys to the product here. This is what one unit of BoltRail looks like. So it's a pair of LVL laminated veneer lumber rails with some injection molded plastic components. These components are made from super tough glass fiber reinforced nylon. It's automotive component grade nylon. And the tool comes in 4 different lengths. So we have this, I'm holding the 26-inch version. It also comes in a 33-inch version, which I've got back here, 45-inch and 55-inch. When I talk about a 26-inch version of the tool, 26 inches is the inside width of the clamping supports, so not the overall length. So a 26-inch size bolt rail can adjust down to any form size less than 26 inches. So one end of this tool slides in and out. Got 2 holders that also move. These are the bolt holders. This is where you hang your bolts. These holders are, I'm going to bring this up closer to the camera. These holders have sleeves in them. You can see what the part kind of looks like there with the ribbing and everything. This will go from a 3/4 inch hole to that sleeve. So it goes from a 3/4 inch hole to a 1 inch hole to a 1 1/4 inch hole without picking up a tool. So it'll do 3 bolt sizes. 5/8 bolts also work just fine in the system. So in use, BoltRail, I should also mention, we can add as many of the holders into the rails if we're doing 6 or 8 bolt patterns. So it's really flexible in that regard. And in use, BoltRail just basically sits on your form. And if you're pouring low on the form, you can just rest it on your forms and fasten them down. But if you're pouring near to the top of your forms, BoltRail has these supports that you can rest it on. I'm just going to tilt this up a little bit so you guys can see there. What that gives you is an inch of clearance under the BoltRail to finish the concrete. So I just stand it up on these supports like this, and by adjusting the spacing between the rails and between the bolt holders, I can achieve just about any anchor bolt setting pattern that I need. So I want to show you guys a couple of things here about the flexibility of this tool. So you can see the supports there. These supports rotate. So between that rotation and the ability of this end to rotate and adjust out, this gives me infinite flexibility to position the bolt rail on my forms. So it doesn't matter if my form is square, if it's aligned with project grid lines or not. It can be skewed, it can be out of square, it can be a funky architectural shape. The bolt rail has the ability to get into any orientation on the form. So I can put this into just about any orientation on the formwork. Yeah, it's sliding a bit on the table, but you guys get the idea, including and not limited to getting my anchor bolts even on 2 sort of adjoining edges of the form. So you can see how flexible the system is in getting getting it aligned in the correct position. So question becomes then, how do you get the tool aligned in the correct position? So BoltRail has some nifty little features built into it. I'm going to try and show it to you guys there. We have these alignment guides built into the supports that are designed not to rotate out of center. And in use, all you have to do is survey in, and I've got the form already marked here. I don't know if you guys can see that, but I've marked where the center line of my structure would go. And then from there, I've marked where the center line of my anchor bolts would go. And I've just marked that down the side of the form. Now you can just place this in position, and you can center it through the top on your marks. Or if you like, you can use that alignment guide on the end. And all I have to do is find my survey mark in that diamond-shaped sight window. And once I do that, all I have to do is put a form screw through the holes in the end of the bolt rail. I'm going to show you that again. So all I'm doing is aligning at the survey mark in that diamond-shaped window, and I'm just putting a couple of holes in one of these preformed holes. Once I've got that end of that bolt rail fixed, this end is still free to move. So I can still get this in. Now I'm going to line up this end. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to repeat that same procedure. I'm going to find my survey point in my window. Put a couple of screws in. And now this rail is exactly where it needs to go, in line with where the bolts need to go. So at this point, I just want to also introduce you guys to the screws that we're using here. This seems to be the best product for BoltRail. This is called the duplex screw. We are the official Canadian distributor of this screw. It comes in two different lengths. So you've got 1 5/8 and 2 3/4 inch. I'll just put them up there. Any kind of construction you're doing that requires removal or disassembly of what you're building, these are the best screws that you can use. We used to use wood screws, which would strip after a couple of uses. We were stripping drivers. Once we use these with a 1/4 inch driver magnetic, and it becomes a one-handed task to put these in and out. Extremely fast. We can't seem to wear them out. We get dozens of reuses out of them. An excellent construction screw. So once that first rail is set, we need to set up the second one. And we can follow the same procedure. We can mark on the form where this one has to go in, and that can be surveyed in, that could be done with a laser, that can be done with a string line. Lots of different ways to find the right position. And on the forms right now, I've got them marked, so I'm just going to do the same procedure, but I'm just going to point out a couple of things. So I don't necessarily have to survey the second one in. I can set the first one off the second one. So in today's demonstration, we're going to do an 8 inch by 8 inch bolt pattern. So I can simply put a tape measure and measure edge to edge of my bolt rails. These are injection molded parts, so they're all dimensionally identical. So I can measure 8 inches between my anchor bolt setting. Sorry, not my anchor bolt setting. I can measure the distance of my bolt spacing from edge to edge and set this rail relative to this one. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. Two screws here. And because it's a handy tabletop demo unit, I can just flip it around instead of walking to the other side. Now I have the same ability here. I can measure it edge to edge, 8 inches, and set it in place, or I can follow my survey lines as well. Just love those screws. All right, so now we've got two parallel rails. The only thing left now is to position the bolt holders in the correct location and fix them in place with the same screws I've been using. So it takes about 2 minutes to line up and install those rails. It takes about another 2 to 3 minutes usually to position these bolt holders and hang your screws. I'm going to just do a demonstration of that, but before I go a little bit further, I want to show you guys a couple of things here. So if you guys are doing jobs that are very repetitive, that require, 50, 100, 200, 300 bolt patterns that are the same. Sometimes what we do is we use what we call a little master template. This is typically just used, we've located the center of it, we've put the holes in there. Really, the only reason we do that is because the ability of BoltRail, I'm just going to hang a bolt in here. Just to sort of give you guys an idea. So once I have the first rail fixed in place and anchored, it can't move in this direction anymore. I can leave everything else loose, put them on, hang all the bolts, leave the bolt holders loose so I can do final positioning of the bolts. Then I can take my master template and I can put that over all 4 bolts and then move all 4 bolts simultaneously into the correct location based on the center of those bolts, and then remove this and then fasten everything down. That speeds up the process in repetitive anchor bolt settings, and just makes the job easier. So this just goes from one pile to the next just to position everything in place. So now moving on to the next step, when you want to install the bolt holders in the correct location, similar to the to what we did before, we mark the center line on the bolt rails of where the column center line is, or whatever structure is sitting on here, and then from there we measure half the bolt spacing over, and I've just marked it. And I really only have to locate the first one of these because I can set all the rest relative to the first one. I'm going to show you guys. I'm going to bring this up close a little bit. The bolt holder here has these little notches, little V notches there. The purpose of those is that it helps me find where I've marked my bolt rail in terms of where these bolts need to go. So in use, all I have to do is find my mark for where the anchor bolt needs to go, put 2 of these in, and I've fixed my bolt holder in place. So the next one, I can do a few things. I can measure and mark and find that point, or I can just measure edge to edge from the holders. These are very uniformly made pieces, and I can set this one relative to this one. On this particular form, I have marked it. That's where it needs to go. So I'm just going to put a couple of screws in here. Set this one up. With the rest of those, we have a couple of options. We can repeat the same process, and I have marked these where they need to go. The other thing I can do is I can just use a little square to just line up these pieces and position them relative to these first ones. So it saves just the time and effort of trying to mark and measure. So I'll just put a couple of screws in here for the demonstration. There we go. So the last step that we recommend is to fix the rails where the sliding component is here. And that's it. So now this system is ready to hang bolts from. Okay, I'm going to show you guys something that's interesting. If you're dealing with J bolts, you have the ability to set up the system in place and drop these in after the fact. So that will slip through here. I can put it in, and then I have the ability to do final adjustments of where that bolt needs to go before I fasten it in. This comes in handy if you're dealing with situations where there's a lot of congested rebar. Instead of trying to go underneath everything and get it in place and then fasten it, you have the ability with J bolts to just drop it in through the top, do your final position, and fasten it. It makes the installation of some anchor bolts quite a bit simpler. You also have the ability to hang the anchor bolts already on the bolt rail prior to installing or prior to lifting them in place. And the advantage again is that you're not having to come in underneath. So we can have these hanging on the bolt rail, get the rails in the right place, do the final positioning of the anchors before we fasten them in place. And it's just one other step, that makes life simpler. Thanks, Glenn. We were on a job site dropping off bolt rails, and we helped the guys on site. We stuck around and helped them. They were short-handed, but they were 1 1/4 to 4 foot long anchor bolts, and they were quite heavy. And to try and fish them through the top, come up underneath the templates while the bolt rails, and put them in position. was quite a bit of wear and tear on the wrists and hands, but to have them hanging prior to putting them in position was quite a bit easier, and then do that final installation. So you can see how easily the system sets up. Usually takes about 5, 6, 7 minutes at most to set up a 4 anchor bolt pattern. The adjustability of this tool means that from form to form with slightly different dimensions and geometry, I can take the system and reuse it multiple times. It will adjust. The big savings, of course, is time, labor. What's done in the industry right now is not typically reusable. 45 minutes to 2 hours, depending on who you talk to, is budgeted to building some kind of a template structure that's typically used once and thrown away. So there's a lot of lost labor. We're hearing from the industry that 4 to 6 reuses of this product is easily achievable, and some guys who are putting formal release on it are getting more uses than that. So it's quite efficient and effective. With a retail price, I'm sure some of you guys are wondering, but with the retail price around $80 for the shortest one to about $100 for the longest one, you get into 2 of them around $160 to $200, but then you're getting 4 to 6 plus reuses out of it, and so the per use cost comes down. The amount of tools that you require come down. The amount of skilled labor comes down. So if you're short on skilled labor and you're having trouble with this task, this tool really makes it easy to get the anchor bolts right. So, and we're showing the most basic sort of installation over a sonotube form, but this can be used with plywood forms. It can be used with aluminum forms and steel forms. All you have to do is clamp a 2x4 onto so that you have something to screw the system down to. But this isn't the only way you can use this product. So if you're doing a job that involves putting anchor bolts in the middle of, let's say, a large pad or a footing or a pad or slab, you just need to run some falsework across your pour, and you can either set this on the falsework just like we've got set up here, or you can do this. You can take your bolt holders out and then flip them to the back side here, and you can hang the system. So with the falsework, the structure just starts to get tall. So you might end up, if you're sitting on top of the falsework, the bolt rails may be too tall for the projection of anchor bolts above the concrete. So, but if we take the system and we hang it from the falsework, then we lower it down closer to the top of the concrete. Now, we have the great advantage here that your falsework doesn't have to be built parallel or square or true or exactly in the right location, because the bolt rail will adjust exactly to where it needs to go, regardless of the widths of formwork or the angles or geometry. And whether we grab the falsework from the outside edges or the inside edges of the falsework, we've got this tremendous flexibility to get this tool in place. Same procedure, we just find the center line of our anchor bolts, mark them on the falsework, find that in our window on both ends, screw it in, and then the rest is just exactly the same as you've done here. I'm going to show you guys a picture. I'm going to hold it up to the camera, but we've got a photo of that system being used there over a slab. The falsework they built out of steel stud. Here they're using a similarly to do anchor bolts around the perimeter of a slab. They've got the falsework going across. On this job, one guy did all the anchor bolt setting, which was about 46 anchor bolts, and he did it all in one afternoon by himself with this tool. So it was great efficiency. You can see for light standards, we allow a lot of room in the middle to get the electrical conduit up. So typically a template that's built, sometimes we'll have to have a hole cut in the middle to get this through. We don't have that problem. We got lots of room to get the vibrators and lots of room to do rebar inspections or retrieve a lost tool. BoltRail gives you great access into the pile cap. Another big advantage, the finishing. You've got that inch gap underneath this, so I can get in, around the edges underneath this in the middle with a little hand trowel. So finishing the concrete becomes quite a bit easier as well compared to traditional templating. Last but not least, we have one other application of this tool that I'm going to show you guys. Well, maybe two. So here's one that we recovered from a job site. So there's a little bit of concrete stuck to it. They used it a few times on a job site. Here what they did was they took the sliding end of our bolt rail, this end, and they put it exactly where they needed it, put a couple of screws in through here, and then cut off what they didn't need, and they created a custom length bolt rail. And the reason this was done was this was slipped inside of a form. So they were pouring low in the form, and the forms were high. And they put ledgers on the inside of the forms, and they could put these, screw these to the ledgers, and then hang this basically on the inside of the form, and that gave them a nice free and clear underneath to finish the concrete. So this was another innovative way to use the product. It was designed to be a semi-consumable product. You basically you get a template tool that's ready to use, or with a small modification can be used to solve many anchor bolt setting challenges. One of the ways that you can use BoltRail is by flipping one of the supports around. So I'm just going to pinch this one out, and I'm going to flip it in from the other side. So now what I've got is one that's got a support on the top and one with a support on the bottom. This is very useful in situations where you've got to get let's say anchor bolts around the perimeter of a slab pour, and you may have formwork on one side, but you don't have formwork on the other side. So you can put this, you still have this incredible adjustability to get this in the right location, but you can hang one end of it off of falsework that runs parallel to your concrete pour. The other end here can sit on your forms. We also run into this situation when we're doing, let's say, footings on the inside of an existing structure, let's say for a freestanding crane. We've seen guys use this where they're pouring up against an existing grade beam or wall, and they've got formwork on the outside of the pour, but this side is an existing wall structure. So they just put a 2x4 nailer on the existing structure, and they would hang this end of it off of an existing structure. And I'm just going to show you guys a quick photo of that, just to show you something from a field use. So you can see here, it's hanging on one end from an existing structure, just the nailer that's been put on the wall. And this particular job had 6 anchor bolt layout. So very efficient. What we hear from people in the industry, it'll turn 150 hours of templating into 12 hours. We had a job last summer, 48 pile caps, 192 anchor bolts were set in 4.5 hours by a 3-man crew. So the level of efficiency is really high. People are reporting that they're cutting their costs by half or more. Even on small jobs, there seems to be days of schedule gain that can be obtained. We just did a demonstration for a job site where they're going to place 1,000 columns on an industrial site, and we think they're going to save between 1,000 and 2,000 man hours compared to what they were doing previously. So that's it in a nutshell. It's easy to use, it's simple, it's fast, it's cost effective, it's great for quality control. One thing we didn't touch on, sometimes if you're building a template, and if you make an error in the construction of that anchor bolt template, oftentimes that template is not good anymore. You have to either start from scratch, or you're now planning on trying to fix your anchor bolts or flame cut base plates, or maybe even redo your pile. One of the beautiful things about BoltRail is that it can be modified on site in minutes. So when I'm doing my final quality control checks on my anchor bolt placement, and we discover that something is out, it takes about 2 minutes to shift things around, undo things, and make a correction to the mistake. So the on-the-fly adjustability for quality control is really tremendous. Yeah, so that's kind of the gist of it. If you guys have any questions, you can, I guess, they type it in or unmute yourselves, and just feel free to ask any questions. But that's it. It's a simple little tool. It saves a huge amount of time for a task that's really critical coming out of the ground. If the anchor bolts are right, the rest of your project will fall in place fairly easily. If the anchor bolts are wrong, you're going to be fighting the rest of that steel work. So.
Yeah, Kevin, it looks great. Where do people buy these products right now?
Where? Sorry, was that Matt?
Yes.
Matt, where are you located?
In Wisconsin.
Oh, Wisconsin.
Oh, Wisconsin. So right now we ship to you direct because we don't have representation in your area. We are talking to White Cap, so that might be available there sometime in the near future. But currently no representation in your area. We would just ship it to you direct. Matt, are you a project manager, or what do you do in the industry?
Actually, a rep group, a manufacturer rep.
Oh, okay. Well, then we should talk.
Yeah. What about in Illinois? Do you have any distributors in Illinois?
No, I don't believe so. We have California, Nevada, Arizona, Wyoming, Utah, New Mexico. What am I missing? Idaho. So we've got like a vertical corridor down the eastern slopes of the Rockies, and then sort of California, Arizona, Nevada, but nothing in your area. We do need representation. This tool is very useful, and there's a lot of anchor bolts being set everywhere, and everybody we've talked to has some struggle with this task. So it's a very timely tool.
What's the name of your rep group, Matt, if you don't mind me asking?
Sure. It's CAM Associates.
Thank you.
Yeah. Great presentation. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much. Okay, I think if nobody else has any questions, I think we'll let you guys all get back to your days. Yeah, sorry. Oh, yeah, Brandon.
Yeah, I had a few questions here for you if you still got a minute.
Of course, yeah.
Are you able to fit nuts underneath on the bottom side of that?
So we do recommend using it that way. You'll get a more sturdy anchor bolt setting. I'm going to actually just, I don't know if you can see that. I got a nut.
Okay, yeah, I got it there.
Yeah. Even if you're building templates from wood from scratch, it's always a good idea to have those nuts top and bottom. There's things that we haven't touched on. For example, like if you're setting really large anchor bolts, concrete is extremely dense material, and as it's going into the form, if you've got a lot of leverage, or you think you might be bumping this with the pump head or something like that, you can always throw a 2x4 across here, or a strip of plywood and tie these together as well. So there's additional steps that you can take to really, increase the robustness of the installation, once it's done. Most smaller bolts and smaller applications, like what I've just shown you, is fine. As you get into bigger, longer bolts, it's not a bad idea to just add a little bit more fastening or securing to the system.
Yeah. Okay. And so you said the product will get maybe like around 5 uses or so?
So we're hearing that 4 to 6 uses is no problem. Like that's, most guys are achieving that without putting any form release on it. We had one guy in the US tell us he had 8 uses before he retired it. We had one company that had form oiled it and stuff. They got a dozen reuses out of it, so it really depends on how you use it. But the key, I guess, the main thing is that, I don't know which area of construction you're working in, but when we talk to some of the bigger companies around here doing industrial work, they're telling us that the first time they use it, it costs about the same as what they're doing right now in terms of time, material, labor. If they get a second use out of it, they're way ahead in terms of both time and money. So just with one a single reuse, you're already saving time and money, and not in significant amounts. So yeah. Sorry.
And what starts to go? Is it just too many screw holes in it?
Yeah,
concrete gets built up.
Yeah, concrete buildup, holes in the rails. We never intended this. We looked at all kinds of materials, but we never intended to be a tool. People are hard on stuff in the construction industry, and concrete especially. So we never intended it to be sort of a buy it and use it forever sort of a tool. But it was just meant to be, we know it's going to get abused, and, you get a certain number of reuses out of it, and then it's sort of a semi-consumable. It's meant to save a bunch of time and labor and save you a bunch of money, but it's not, you're not going to use it for 5, 10, 20 years. It's not like that. Not like a 300 hammer or anything like that. So, yeah.
Okay.
But, yeah. Quite sturdy. I mean, these LVL rails, I'm 200 pounds and I can stand on it. It doesn't even flex. So there's no question about, you can hang some pretty big bolts on it. It's all fine. We have and like these LVL rails, we went with this because they're easy to modify. You can add your own additional reinforcements to it. You can screw right through it down into the whalers if you like. So there's a lot of different things that you can do with it. If you're interested in the product, we have a lot of videos and content on our website. So please do check it out. But if you have any work coming up, let us know. We'd love to see you guys using it. We can do an in-person, like a virtual demonstration for your team as well, for the guys who are going to use it. So
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I'll pass this along and definitely check out some of those videos you said on your website.
Yeah,
On
the
your
website
YouTube.
and we have a YouTube channel. Just go search BoltRail in YouTube and it'll come up.
Okay. All right. Very nice.
Right. Any other questions? Okay, I think we'll call it a day there, guys. We thank you for your time and your interest in BoltRail.